Do you turn on your computer and have weird sounds come out the speakers? Sounds like a gremlin, some people call it sound artifact, some people call it electronic magnetic interference. It's basically when you move your mouse or you change the screen or anything like that, it generates this very glitchy, computerized sound coming out of the speakers. And on top of that, sometimes there's just a constant hum that's coming out of the speakers. If that's happening to you, chances are you've got a ground loop. Before we get into it, let's go through the usual things. Hi, I'm Merwin. This is the Musician's Workbench. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and turn on all notifications. Okay, ground loops. There's a whole bunch of literature you could go into understanding ground loops, but essentially when you've got separate devices that have their own path to ground, like a speaker, a computer, that's three separate things getting their power from the wall, you do have a potential for their path to ground not being equal to the other two. And when that happens, you can get ground loops. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it'll happen in one room. Sometimes if you move your entire setup to a different room, you won't get it at all. It's very dependent on what room you're in, what your setup is, if you've got things plugged into the same outlet or not. But I just wanted to go through a couple of things that I found when you're experiencing ground loops that you can kill them pretty much straight away. I was looking on a lot of forums, and it particularly seems to happen a lot when you're using an iMac through FireWire cable into your sound card. Mine is a Sapphire Pro 24, and then that goes into two powered speakers. Why? Because as I said before, each of those speakers behind me and the computer has got its own dedicated path to ground. Now, somewhere in my setup behind me, I've done all the right things. They're all plugged into the same path to ground, but something's not quite happening correctly, and one of them has a bit more resistance than the other to ground, and so I was getting a ground loop. So when I turn my computer on and play, it would be like... You could still hear the music coming out the speakers, but there was this underlying rumbly sound, and if you did anything on the screen or you moved a mouse or typed in a keyboard, you get this real glitchy, sort of like a gremlin in the machine sound. Now, some people advocate for these, and I'm sure they work in a lot of instances, but this is an unbalanced solution. And unbalanced means it's a tip sleeve solution, which means instead of a cable, you've probably seen cables that look like this before, like a guitar cable, tip, and then there's a little separator, and then there's a sleeve. So you've got two wires. A tip, then a separator, then a ring, then a separator, and a sleeve, however, gives you what's called a balanced connection. And what a balanced connection does is you have two audio signals, one's out of phase, and the third is a dedicated ground wire. So what I had to change in my setup was I had two mono outs, which was a tip sleeve connection going from the back of my Sapphire Pro to the speakers. I took them out, I put in a balanced cable, tip ring sleeve, on each of the left and right outputs into the inputs of the speakers. Sound is gone. It's perfect. So I just want to do a quick video today and just say if you're experiencing that problem and you don't have balanced connections, which is a tip ring sleeve connection coming out of the back of your sound card into your powered monitors, try that. It worked for me. Only cost about $30 for the two cables, which are about 2 or 3 feet long each. I'll put a link in the description to the ones I got, but really any TRS cable should really do the trick. Just needs to go from your sound card to the powered speaker. That means now that the ground loop disappears because it's not traveling on the same wire as what the audio signals are. It's got its own dedicated ground, and it gets grounded when it goes into the speaker. So if you're having that problem, try that. It worked wonderfully for me. I'm sure these do work. These ground loop isolation devices thing didn't work for me in this case. It was the tip ring sleeve cabling that fixed it for me. Okay, so that's today's video. Until next time, I'm Merwin. This is the Musician's Workbench. Have a great day.